Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com looks at the major markets. It was a comeback Friday after a shaky week or two. Ross points out interest rates appear to be on the way up, and it might be a good time to lock up your mortgage. He also examines gold, crude, and natural gas. Mark Leibovit, publisher of the VR newsletters, chats with us from Arizona. He comments on the Evergrande crisis in China, the U.S. government possibly not paying its bills, precious metals, cryptocurrencies, Geo-Cosmic events, and whether governments are in a position to bail out companies that run into serious trouble. Mark also has a special offer for our listeners. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have a company showcase update from American Manganese President Larry Reaugh. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMY.V, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. You can find him on Twitter at ChartsByRoss. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Always a pleasure, Jim.
Ross, after a shaky week or two on the markets and a lot of red ink on some accounts, it was kind of what we would call bounce back week, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, if last week we had a turnaround Tuesday, this week we had a turnaround Friday. There we were on Thursday's close, down, most indices down 5.5% off the highs, and that's a pretty significant level that we look at. I look at the 5.5 and the 11% as general support areas when you're within a trend, and so this was the bounce back day, and it's the beginning of a new calendar quarter, which means there's new money coming in, people into their IRAs and their RSPs, and funds to be put in. Finished off the week with a pretty good note here. So, we've had two tests now in the last week and a half of pretty good support levels. The stocks that have been weak, super weak going into this really didn't bounce that much. But the sectors that have been holding in and really, sort of coming to life in the last month or so, were the financials, which got back close to their highs again at the end of the week. And you take a look at the energies, the XLE in the U.S., the XEG here in Canada, looking at 18-month highs. So it's always a market of stocks, and the rotation that's going on has found some sectors that are holding in reasonably well.
Now, the Dow exchange looked very gloomy. It had some major drops, and now everybody's optimistic at the start of October, and yet October traditionally is a month that a lot of bad things have happened. Have there been warning signs that people should be aware of?
Yeah, there still are things out there on the horizon that aren't good. If you take a look at the emerging market bonds, the AMY.V, that's really broken down through support. You take a look over at the TIPS, the inflation-linked bonds. Those have broken a trend line coming up from 2018, so that trend is not doing too well. And if you then just look at the U.S. government side of the things on the 10-year and the 30 years, those rates are starting to pick up. And if rates start to pick up quickly, that tends to be hard on the market. Maybe keeps the lid in here. I think what we've seen is good enough oversold condition that we can get a bounce for maybe a week or 10 days or so. But if, it'd be similar to what we had 10 days ago where you had a decent bounce but couldn't get through resistance. I got a feeling here that this one once again is going to find some pretty decent resistance, probably as we get through into the end of next week. And, if we can't get through, then we're set up for October, which usually somewhere in October, early November, can be a pretty important low. So at this point, the breaks haven't been all that bad, 5.5% off a high. It's not even what you would call a correction yet. But I think that you've got some vulnerability that could find its way through there.
The TD is the first of Canada's 6 big banks to hike fixed rates. Should people pay attention to how much they're paying for their mortgage and maybe lock in now?
Oh, sure. But, I mean, the rates have started to, if you take a look at what's been happening in the bond market, it was only a matter of time before the banks started to make their move here. And, this game can be taking the frog, putting him in water, and he doesn't realize how hot it's got, how to the point where it's boiling when it's too late to make the move. So if you're at all on the edge of your ability to maintain your mortgage based upon the rates that you've got right now, it'd be a good time to lock in, I think, clearly. But and I've said to people, there's so little more on the downside as far as interest rates were concerned and possibility that really was it worth it to take the chance? You're better off to lock it in and have the comfort of knowing that, what your costs are going to be on an ongoing basis.
What's going on with the U.S. dollar?
Dollar had a really good week, closed off sort of a little bit, tailed off at the very end, but overall the dollar's got this nice base, this US dollar index, closed the week over 94, and there have been resistance in the sort of 93.5 to 93.80, and has managed to push through that. If we look at the moving averages, the 20 and the 50-week moving averages have both started to curl up. The 20 is crossing above the 50. So that tells you that we've got a nice base in place. I think there's reasonable potential in here to go, tack on another fair amount. And in turn, the surprising thing is that commodities as a whole, which normally would feel the pressure when you're having this move in the dollar, commodities have been holding in pretty darn well. The CRB index closed off the week at the highest that we've seen in, let me look at my chart here. This is, we haven't had levels this high since back in 2015. And as we mentioned last week, cotton is one of those things. You want to go out and buy your T-shirts and blue jeans now before the prices get much higher.
How's crude oil doing?
There's another one held in very well this week. When you see how much pressure we had in the early part of the week, and the oil market closed off at 75 and change. So that's basically back closing pretty much at the highs of the year. And the fact that we just had that, if you look at the correction that was from 76 down to 64 and turned the corner, that looks like a pretty mild correction relative to the move that we had up from the mid-30s last year. And I think there's still pushing through here, the potential is up to the $100 level, and wouldn't be at all surprised that given time, you could get a push up there. The weather is having an effect in terms of what's happening to the natural gas prices. You're up at really high numbers there, and so at a point, people will start to do the conversion across from gas over into oil. So I think there could be some new bids that come in. And the Canadian oil and gas stocks have just been on a tear here. For all that there was a little bit of a hiccup early in the week. It was a very good close to the week, and from a sector point of view, it's the energies, the financials. Those are the ones that have got the leadership, and it's during the times on the pullbacks that you want to see where the resiliency is, and so I'm pretty comfortable in there.
Ross, thank you so much for the update.
It was a pleasure to be with you, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com. You can find him on Twitter at chartsbyross. He was speaking to us from Vancouver. Coming up, Mark Leibovit next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision. Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com. This Week in Money is archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to This Week in Money, Mark.
Always fun. Thanks for having me back.
Mark, do we have a special offer for our listeners?
Just for you, Jim, we'll do it again. It's the 2021 half off at VRTrader.com. It's a promo code. You insert it in the little promo code box, 2021 half off, and you get 50% off of any of the newsletters for any time frame you sign up for. And we do have quite a few. We've got the metals resource letter, the cannabis letter, our market timing letter, forecaster, all kinds of fun stuff. In fact, we're actually going to create a new letter by year end, and I hate to make this a little bit of a commercial, but we decided to do a year end special newsletter report. And we did this last year informally, but it was like up to 40% returns on some of these stocks within 30 days. It's a function of year-end tax selling coming into depressed stocks, and what's generally referred to as the January effect, where stocks that are depressed into the end of the year tend to bounce into January, and some have extraordinary percentage gains. Unfortunately, a lot of these stocks are very low-priced stocks, penny stocks, but some do very well, so we're going to create a special report this year, the year-end stock report letter. It will be a one subscription just for a one-time report coming in the next month or so, and hopefully some of the names we pick will be as good as the ones we picked last year, which I think had an average return around 40% for the short period that we traded them. So that's something new coming up, and we'll keep you posted.
Mark, is the U.S. government really running out of money, or is this just some kind of political game that we're witnessing?
Well, if we're talking about the national debt issue, I guess technically until they authorize their ability to issue more debt, but they always seem to figure that one out. As long as you've got printing presses or digital electronic ability to print money, which is what the Fed and the Treasury essentially do, I don't think you ever run out. The question is, at what point does the market realize that the paper they're issuing is not worth anything, and then does it become a Zimbabwe or some kind of other situation where, paper is worthless? So the answer is no, they're not running out yet, and I don't know if they'll ever run out, but the value of the dollar would, over time depreciate. Of course, all currencies tend to do that anyway. If you want to even talk about the British pound, which, has collapsed in recent decades compared to where it used to be, because it used to be the leading, standard bearer for currencies. Now the dollar, but since the Federal Reserve took over in 1913, the value of the dollar's dropped to about 97%. So it just eventually will go to zero, and hopefully we're protected at that time with physical assets, gold or some new currency, or maybe it's going to be the crypto market, which everybody seems to be focusing on as a safety net.
Does the spillover from Evergrande look like it's contained in China?
It could be China's Lehman moment, and it could be worse, or even worse than that. I think the implications of Evergrande is far greater than what we're really being told. And from what I understand, Evergrande was the largest issuer of commercial paper in China. They issued about $32 billion in 2020, which was a 390% increase from 2015. I don't know. It shows the collapse shows the dangerous reality in several Chinese sectors, excessive indebtedness without real income or assets to support it. I guess, bottom line, even though the government launched a massive crackdown on large companies, most investors are already concerned about the corporate governments and intervention in China, as you know, with they're feeling that suddenly rich people can't be as rich as before, and Jack Ma and other people have been, silenced, and it's crazy what's going on over there. I mean, they're cracking down a little bit on capitalism, when before that it was fine, as long as, I guess, members of the Communist Party were also making billions along with the capitalists. But that's sort of a side story. I mean, the Evergrande thing, a bottom line is, listen, we had the collapse here in the U.S. With long-term capital, if you remember, and Alan Greenspan came in and bailed them out when we thought that everything was going to go to hell. And of course, we had the financial crisis in 2008 and 9, and the government bailed us out of that. So the answer is, maybe they're just going to print more money and cover it up and bail them out, and it'll just be another one of these episodes that the government supports. That's the only way I can express it. I mean, it should have international implications, and we'll find out over time if it does. Short term, it seems to have been quiet. The bad news has been quieted down a bit, so it is a big negative event, no question about it. But I think the ability for China to print more money and cover it up and bail them out, I guess, is the possible safety net for that situation. But the way the stock market has acted in recent days outside of China, initial collapse for that or other reasons, it seems to want to recover here. So maybe they're bailing them out. So at the moment, it's a definitely negative event, but we find out governments bail out bad situations. So maybe that's the real answer to your question.
Well, China's been in this mad rush to go from the world's second largest economy to the biggest economy, but in the way, or along the way, you're going to hit bumps. And China has no experience with free enterprise, or at least not for the last century or two. Could China decide, if things get really bad, it's time to take over Taiwan, which they call Taipei, and resort to violence or war to take their citizens' minds off of their bad economic situation, just like Argentina did with the invasion of the Falklands?
So that said, we're dealing with a evil giant, and we don't know, where it's all going to lead. I mean, we're obviously at war on a certain level, at least the U.S. and China. Whether it's going to become, I don't think they'd ever do a shooting war, but we'll find out if and when they go into Taiwan how we're going to react to it. So it just reminds me a little bit of, what Japan and Germany did during World War II. They decided that they wanted to expand their empire, and they do whatever they can to do it, and that means conquesting other countries and expanding their influence. Maybe that's what's happening here, both economically and militarily, and the question is how we react to it on this end with the present government and administration in the U.S. who doesn't have enough balls to do anything right. They may just let them do it, which is a tragedy if that happens.
Right, and of course, if it's a shooting war, World War II started out with just conventional weapons, ended with nukes being used. It gets pretty messy if somebody on one side or the other starts to feel desperate.
I don't know. I think more likely they would launch an EMP over the West or the U.S. and knock out our internet and create havoc here without actually having to invade us so quickly. If they really wanted to do something dramatic, if they just shut down the internet and did something like the EMP, that would just knock out the U.S. everything, the food supply, distribution, business activities, banking, the whole kit and caboodle. It would create, you could imagine it would happen in Canada as well. So, I mean, I would think they would pull something like that before they would just, start doing what Japan or Nazi Germany did back then. We have the technology. Of course, they got stuff in space too. They they're planning a moon launch, and they got a space station flying around the U.S., and they probably have their eyes on Mars, like Elon Musk, even though I think we're already there through our secret space program. But you know, they're pretty technologically advanced, though they have stolen a lot of technology from the West and the U.S. They're a formidable enemy, and President Xi, he's in for life. So he's a dictator, and you know, if this is a plan, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and the influence of the West is going to, at least in the part of the U.S. side, is going to decrease. So it's a reality we're going to have to deal with, unfortunately. And then with the present administration in the U.S., Biden, who I have no regard for, who I think is an alleged president. I think there was a lot of fraud in the election process. We've known that Democrats have been acting that way for 4 years prior, as long as Trump got in. But he seems to have some allegiance to China, and or had some financial benefit from that allegiance, he and his family, from what I read. So it's not a pleasant scenario going forward, really.
And the Chinese, of course, are worried about their own domestic problems. They're having electrical blackouts. They don't have enough coal, apparently, for their coal-fired plants. And one of the reasons they likely ban cryptocurrencies is because you need a lot of electricity to mine Bitcoin and other cryptos.
They have their share. There's no question about it. I'm not there. I don't verify all the stories, but of course, there was also the story that they chased Bitcoin out of the country, which I don't know if it's a real story or not. A lot of interesting stuff going on over there. Just like every day, we're getting some interesting news. I really don't know how to evaluate it other than look to see how the equity markets, both there and in the U.S., are reacting to it. So we just have to deal with it day to day. There seems to have been some value in some of the Chinese ETFs that collapsed, that might be technically oversold, that it might be a play there. But you and I aren't going to change the political scenario. So, I mean, we're sort of just pawns in this whole game of China and the world. So it's crazy. But I know when I was there not too many years ago, last time I was in China was back in, I think, 2010, 2011. I mean, I was so impressed with the advanced state of their country in terms of infrastructure. I mean, everything was brand spanking new, the airports, the roads. You couldn't find a piece of dirt anywhere on the ground. It was a complete opposite of U.S. cities. Sparkling new skyscrapers being built. I mean, I'm going back 10 years now when I was there. That was my second trip. But it was like, you know, your jaw drops when you see how, you know, what's been built over there and what it looks like. And it's like a new country. It's like one of the reasons why people leave the big cities and go to places like, you know, Arizona or other, you know, places that are newer. They just want to get out of the bad environment that was created for lack of, you know, infrastructure improvement and quality of life in the big cities. But China, at least unless something has changed, it seems like they're still on that path. So if that's the case, they're leading the world. I mean, it's a sad state compared to what's happening here in the U.S. They have their act together, so you got to respect that.
What about the energy crisis in Europe? Their wind farms were becalmed, and they didn't have enough natural gas or coal on hand to fire up plants, and people saw their power bills escalate to like $700 a day. They don't have any petrol, as they call it, gasoline in UK service stations. They have to bring in the army to deliver it because all of their truck drivers were from Turkey or Poland, and they've all gone home because of Brexit.
Oh, so they didn't have the problem Australia had, where the government insisted that unless you're vaccinated, you couldn't work or you couldn't deliver products and services. So there was a different hang up over there. Here, you know, the story in Australia, and of course the truckers decided they weren't going to listen to the government edicts, and they blocked the roads and so forth. So it's another crazy government problem that it's all related to centralized government and inept politicians who create unbelievably inane regulations. So I don't have the answer for you there, but we know there's going to be higher prices coming in natural resources, crude oil and natural gas. We've seen that already. And whether it's a manipulated event or it's really a function of supply chain issues and the fact that everybody got closed down so long they can't get their act together and getting production underway and delivered to where it needs to be delivered. So hope that helps you a little bit there. I don't have an answer for you.
Well, in Europe was this push to so-called green energy, wind farms and solar. But if it's a cloudy day or rainy, there goes your solar. And in winter, of course, you have shorter days, and wind does come along and then can decide not to show up. Do you have to be ultra careful if you're going to make the switch to alternative energy? And I think Texas, with their deep freeze, they found their wind farms weren't all that reliable as well.
One of the reasons uranium has been rallying in recent weeks, and uranium stocks have been doing better for the last year or so, is the realization, which is not a new realization. It's been around for many, many years, that the big solution is nuclear. China doesn't have that problem. If I understand, they've been building nuclear plants for many years. There's about a 10-year lead time here in the U.S. I don't know what it is in Europe, but the solution is going to have to be nuclear. I don't think there's enough fossil fuel around forever, so prices will go up in the meantime. We do need it. And as you said, solar is great. I love solar. I love wind. I love geothermal. I love all these energies, but how much energy do they supply against the needs of our growing world? And I think ultimately it's a balance. They all have to fill in. Crude oil will fill in, nuclear and solar, and everyone takes a piece. And I don't think there's going to be one answer. I think it's a combination of energy sources. Even coal has been coming back because we needed coal when we supposedly it was such a dirty energy. Well, would you rather be cold and not have your lights on, or would you rather have coal and firing up a generator plant somewhere? So, the liberals with that have been running, unfortunately, the politics of many countries, I think they want to freeze to death or starve to death, so they might have to change their tune.
In the charts, outside month in September to the downside for the S&P 500, down month for the Dow, up month for both NASDAQ and the Russell 2000. It's now October. Your thoughts on the stock markets?
Well, I've been bearish up to this point. We're still in a theoretically negative time frame. Some argue that the bear market ends come October. That's a great buying opportunity. There is some precedent for that, but I'm not sure if it's over to the downside. I know we had some sharp moves here. The bulls could argue that the lows from September 20th were not breached on this really recent sell-off in the last few days, and then we've recovered the last couple days, and maybe the worst is behind us, and part of it could be perhaps the quote-unquote plunge protection team, the working group of financial markets that exists here in the U.S., and their ability to go in and support the equity indexes. And very few people talk about that, so the government is in there. There's already been reported that I think it was the Treasury or the Fed, bought into some companies here to support the bond market of a couple companies. Intervention on the part of government in private enterprise and the stock market is not a new event. I remember back during the crash in 2007 and 8, I think the Fed bought stock or bonds of Harley Davidson to support that company at the time, and I was scratching my head. I had no idea the Fed, would go and not only support the stock market as a whole or manipulate the interest rates, but they go and actually involve themselves directly in the equity market that way. I knew they had power to do that based on the executive order that Ronald Reagan issued under that plunge protection team back in 1988. But that's what could be going on, Jim. They could just decided they're not going to let it go down, and there's enough issues going on, with regard to the debt in the U.S. and other things, and they just said we're going to support the market, and they just started buying the futures through their surrogates, the big brokerage firms, and it could be over. I mean, we could route in new highs, and the correction could be behind us. Just the chart said cyclically we're in this time frame, and you just mentioned the Chinese real estate firm collapse a few minutes ago. There's enough reasons why the market could go down. So I guess they hit the buy button, and maybe it is over. So until we take out the lows of September 20th, from a technical point of view, you have to assume that maybe the worst is over. If we take out the September 20 lows, then it's a free fall to the downside looking at the chart.
If that happens, is there anything that could be a so-called safe haven?
Is there a safe haven? You know, when the market goes down, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. We saw gold and silver acting poorly all year. Everybody thought that was. The only thing I would think of would be the crypto market, which has been trying to recover here in the last few days, and has been, you know, maybe that's where the money is flowing. A lot of institutional interest. Real estate, I guess, would be my next, or maybe my primary choice, because it seems like institutional investors, from what I've been reading, they decide gold and silver are poppycock, and they're not protecting you from anything, but real estate's been going up. So a lot of money's been going into that sector. So I would say real estate is probably the best answer, followed by crypto.
Do you see a bottom for gold?
Yes, at some point. You know, it's a heavily manipulated market by governments. GATA.org, if you ever check out their work the last 20 years, has demonstrated how gold and silver have been suppressed and manipulated. Gold and silver should be significantly higher, and they're not, because if they go up, it makes government look bad. So there's you know, definite inclination for government to suppress the price of it, but it still tends to trade quite a bit, and it has its trading opportunities. I've been bearish on it pretty much all year. I was thinking maybe we could hit a low sometime here in October or November, and whether it's just a little trading low or a big low, I'm just going to have to wait for the charts to tell me. I was hoping silver would get down to about $19, got close, but didn't quite get there, and we are way oversold in the charts, so maybe we've hit a low here, and I haven't achieved full confirmation yet. So there's a trade, but you know, I'm not positioned long as a trader just yet. You know, I have my foot in the door a tiny little bit, but I'm not really jumping up and down about it. I'd rather buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or some cryptos, which have demonstrated, I think, greater relative strength. So, but you know, I'll be there when it's clear, and it seems to be teetering here near some type of low or coming off a little low. So let's see what the charts tell us here in the next 30 days.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMY.V, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, on the cryptos, so many people have said, oh, they're just a fad. They'll fade away. There's no real assets backing them. What's your thought on cryptos?
Well, I'm a big believer in them. I think they've been poo-pooed, and there's been most negative press on them. And, you know, tremendously volatile. You know, you don't put your life savings into anything, but I know a lot of millionaires that have been made I'm part of some very young people who've been smart enough to take some nice positions in some of these roughly 7,000 different cryptos that are out there. If we want to look at Bitcoin, you know, you could argue that it should go to zero, but it hasn't. Become almost like an institutional investment. Why is it priced at the price it's at? Why should it be priced at $42,000 a coin if it's a worthless asset, or governments are going to shut it down supposedly? As I mentioned before, I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't be 100,000 or 500,000. I mean, maybe I'm making a 5-year comment. I don't know, but definitely we were trading Ethereum and Bitcoin for our newsletter clients the last 3 days. Took a couple trades on the long side. We did take some profits in them, but they still look higher to me. I like to trade this stuff too, but you can do it through ETFs. You don't have to do it through the actual, you know, websites or apps like Coinbase and so forth. You can do it, you know, on the ETF side, and you can play it that way. Definitely an asset class. Definitely worth trading. Great volatility. Love it. You know, and if it goes down, you know, maybe we'll get that opportunity to short it you can short it too on terms of trade. So my overall feeling is positive. It's the new currency. It's where the world is going. All the young people are in it. Governments can't stop it. They can badmouth it any way they want. But it's not going. I don't think it's going away by any stretch. So some cryptos may survive where others don't. But I think if you stick with Ethereum and Bitcoin and a handful of others, even Dogecoin, fondly known as Doggy Coin, that Elon Musk has been talking about, is gaining more credibility, as some companies are indicating they may accept that as a way to purchase their products. So, and our company is accepting cryptos, as you probably know. The whole list of them. I don't have a list in front of me here, but a list of the substantial companies that accept cryptos as payment. So if the commercial world is accepting it, how can you argue with it? That's the bottom line.
I remember Virgin Galactic accepting Bitcoin as payment for a $20,000 trip into outer space about 10, 11 years ago, when Bitcoin was worth about $250. I think they might make a bit of a profit on that ticket sale.
Absolutely. If they held that, it's amazing. Yes, I heard a story the other day about some conference the last 10 years where, they were giving away free Bitcoins or having a little contest to get a couple of them, and people were scratching their head. What were these things, and were they worth anything? So it's like anything else. You just can't put all your money into anything, and hopefully you wait for correction like we just had in Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the others. And when you see a nice shakeout, you got to pull up your charts. You got to look at the chart patterns on them and see how they're trading. And when they get a nice sell-off and they're coming off the bottom, and if you're a trader, you get in. If you're a long-term crypto bug, like we have gold bugs who sell their gold and never buy it and never sell it. You could take that approach too, but you just have to allocate it to a percentage of your portfolio that in case you're wrong, you don't get wiped out. That's about it. I think it has its place. You gotta, even though I'm telling you that, I'm not so bullish on gold this second, I could change my mind tomorrow, but it doesn't mean I won't hold a few gold coins somewhere, or I won't hold a little Bitcoin just as a diversification. But if you're going to play it heavily, I think you have to just wait for the strong buy and sell signals like we were doing here at VR Trader the last couple of days.
El Salvador, the first country to officially recognize Bitcoin as currency. You can do official transactions and pay your taxes with it. How soon before other countries feel the same way? I know Cuba is also encouraging cryptocurrencies because that way they get around U.S. sanctions.
I don't have an answer for you, Jim. I don't know when other countries plan on doing it. I think there's a European country. Was it Hungary or Czechoslovakia? Somewhere I read was also talking about that. But I'm less concerned about the government. I'm more happy that capitalistic companies, businesses accept the coins. That's where the activity and profit is. So if Amazon and Facebook and all these other companies to start accepting coins, which I think they have already, if I'm not mistaken. I know Tesla was accepting coins for a while. That's all that matters.
Are there any overbought or oversold markets you're looking at?
The gold market, of course, we just discussed that. That's one to keep an eye on. And another one is what sort of stands out. I don't know if it's going to take off or not. Is the cannabis stocks, which have been decimated here in recent months. They had bear markets, and then they rallied back on the hope of U.S. legalization a few months back. Now they're back down testing their lows again. So I'm watching the cannabis market. It's way down there, way depressed, and we'll see if we get some clear signs of the bottom. I'm not except for our cannabis letter where we do monitor a bunch of the key stocks and ETFs in that sector. Of all of them, I like the U.S. cannabis companies because they've been making money, unlike the Canadian companies, which have been struggling and now trying to get into the U.S. market. So if we might have seen a bottom in the U.S. cannabis names, it's sort of looking that way, but it's still very depressed. And so you got to look at that. And gold and silver. Let's wait and see if we get a signal there. Both these markets are closer to their lows than any other market. So that those two come to mind.
President Biden's against legalizing pot, but it looks like most of the Democratic Party is. But Doesn't he have much bigger things to look at or deal with than legalizing marijuana?
I guess so. I mean, he looks stoned to me when I watch him. So he might already be on. He may be smoking joints all day long or taking THC supplements somewhere. Sure looks to me like he's out of it already.
Mark, I know you like to look at Geo-Cosmic events as a way to perhaps just give you a little leg up on what the markets are doing or might do. Any hints from financial astrology about what's going to happen in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, well, we have to talk to the financial astrologers who do most of that work. I watched the lunar cycle carefully, and we saw a full moon right on the September 20th lows. So there are some interesting overlaps there, but there's definitely something going on in the geocosmic world with the increase in earthquakes and what weather changes, volcanic activity. So there's something going on out there, and we're definitely in some type of planetary change, or we're being influenced on some level. It's not climate change; it's something geocosmic affecting the planet right now. There's a moon wobble situation every 18 years, which affects us. Apparently that's coming up, but we're already seeing things happen. So just about daily we're getting reports of solar storms. They call them CMEs from the sun, and believe me, one of those hits in a big way, like that Carrington event, which we've talked about dozens of times on the show. That can knock out the planet even more so than the EMP we were speculating about coming from China a few minutes ago. So we're a vulnerable planet, and we somehow think we're immune out there, and we walk around day to day, and we don't understand that we're being influenced by things outside of our atmosphere. There's a lot of things going on out there, not talked about at all, really, in the financial sphere, even though there are impacted events and we see correlations, so, yep, keeping an eye on it. And, if I'm not mistaken, there's some type of solar storm that was brewing the last couple of days. I got to check the websites that publish the information on the solar flares and stuff, and see if anything other than just a casual event is headed our way. I'm just wondering if a serious one really occurred, whether we'd be warned in time or whether they've discussed it on any level. And the same thing goes for asteroids and all other fun stuff that's out there. We actually have a website you can track all the, it's a government published website tracking all the asteroids out there. It's an extensive list, and some come close to the Earth to the extent that there may be a couple distances beyond the moon. They're not that close to us, but one day they're going to make a mistake or not track it, or it's going to go off track, and suddenly we're going to have an asteroid issue, which is something that nobody thinks can happen, but it's happened over millions of years on the planet. God forbid something like that happens. You can forget about politics or the stock market, because that would be the end of us. So, we'll see what happens, Jim. Keeping an eye on it, and not much I can do to change it, but I certainly want to pay attention to what's going on out there. Over the years, I've done a pretty good job. And even the seasonal changes. I mean, we talked about this before. People don't pay attention to the autumnal equinox or the winter solstice. Many times, as we know, we get changes of market direction. The autumnal equinox that we just experienced here in September. Well, didn't the stock market do something in September? People say it was mutual funds rebalancing, all kinds of financial manipulations that come this time of year is the reason for this. Why isn't it a planetary change? We've seen lows in March at the vernal equinox, for example, sometimes big market lows, big market highs. These are not coincidences. So, markets change direction. Our moods are affected by the moon as the tides are affected. Very interesting stuff. So I look at this as for doing this for 43 years. There's more to the stock market than just watching CNBC, believe me.
Well, you have remarked in the past about solar flares affecting things like volcanoes, and Kilauea's re-erupted. The Canary Islands have a major volcanic eruption. We've seen some major earthquakes take place. Is there a definite cycle to that, and can you tie that to what's going on in the markets?
I think you can, but, you got to watch, it's like the weatherman making the forecast. You have all the geocosmic data or weather data, and you present a case, but then you look out the window just before you make your forecast, because sometimes you have to get confirmation from what's really happening versus what you think is going to happen or should happen. So you got to put all the pieces together. I use this as a general guideline, and if I say, watch out, we get a change of direction in the market in September or March or whatever, based on the seasons or based on some other solar or lunar event, then you just have to see if the numbers confirm that. So if you see technical indicators rolling over or bottoming at a time when these other geocosmic events are unfolding, then you've got confirmation. So it's a little bit of a game of putting the pieces together on what's happening, and that's what we really do here.
10 years ago, if you would have suggested we would have multi-billionaires putting their own spacecraft into the sky, you would have laughed at it. And yet we have 3 billionaires doing that. If they decide to go to outer space, what's to stop them to maybe on their way to Mars stopping by at a nearby asteroid and mining some gold or platinum?
I think that's what's honestly, I think that's happening already. I think we have technology that's underway through our secret technology and space program, which I think has been in existence for quite some time. There was an interesting picture. I put it on my website, or on my newsletter a few days ago. Elon Musk had released a picture. Apparently it was taken from one of the SpaceX craft. And I don't know if this picture was doctored up or not, but it supposedly came from Elon Musk. In the top left corner, if you blew up the picture, you saw it look like a bunch of little flying saucers flying around, some type of extraterrestrial craft. Looked like a swarm of them in the top left corner of the picture, and you had to blow it up to see it. So I can't attest for the validity of it, but apparently it was posted on Musk's Twitter account, and I got notified to take a look at this picture, and I blew it up, and sure enough, in the top left corner, a bunch of little looked like saucer-type craft were there. So we got to verify the authenticity of that. But my thought is our technology is way advanced, and whether it's extraterrestrial or whether it's stuff that we've created from our own technology or from reverse engineering of some craft that might have crashed, like Roswell back in 1947, the answer has never been made clear. But I think we're way ahead of where we're told we are, Jim, way ahead. And I think if the truth came out, it would just utterly shock the world. And I think that's one of the reasons I think they're keeping it quiet. If they already told us, which I believe we're already on Mars, and we have bases on the moon already, had for a while, I think a lot of people will get awfully angry about that, right? So they want to release that news slowly, and maybe is this rush to get to Mars on the part of Musk and others, because frankly we're already there, and we have to legitimatize it, so we have to get the culture up to speed that we're doing it, versus telling them that we've already been there and lied to them about it. So it's an interesting scenario, and there's a lot of research behind the comments I'm making. It's just not something I've dreamt up, believe me. I wouldn't make these statements if I didn't think there's some validity to them. So Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Branson attempts to fly into space are cute and interesting, and they're fun for these people, and maybe I'm sure they're going to make money doing it, but there's bigger stuff going on beyond that. So we'll see. Time will tell if I'm right.
Well, I recall it was either the Mercury or Gemini astronauts reported seeing little saucers in formation flying around their spacecraft. One of them saying, "Hi guys, how you doing? You're so pretty."
They covered that up over the decades as well. I know the astronauts are trying to be quiet about what they saw. Supposedly there was stuff on the moon when they landed there. There's supposed to be some craft was on one of the cliffs or mountains nearby where the Apollo astronauts had landed, and the communication was supposedly shut down, and some apparently ham radio operators picked up on the communication where the official communication line was shut down. I mean, it's really a tragedy. It really is. It's like Columbus discovering the New World. Of course, we know other civilizations came to North America way before Columbus, but it's like, a discovery is made, but nobody's told about it. I mean, it's really perverse, and it just shows how government has become so corrupt that it feels it can do and say anything. It's like the control issue on the part of government. We control everything including news, what you can believe, what you hear, and, whether it'll ever stop, I don't know, but it really makes me angry.
Mark, is there a way to make money on these supposed space discoveries or possible discoveries?
Well, I'm looking for them every day. I mean, there's a couple of ETFs out there you can trade, and there's actually an ETF called ticker symbol UFO. It's on the American U.S. markets, and it's mostly aerospace companies on that. And I would say, there's another one, ITA, another ETF. With the space program, the secret space program, even legitimate space program underway, companies are hired to build these things, even if some of them are built secretly. So I guess you want to own a portfolio of all the aerospace companies, and those would be just a couple of ideas out there to benefit from them. Of course, you got ticker symbol SPCE, which is Bramson stock, and that's been really volatile, trading between $15 and $60 in the last year and a half, and that moves all over the place. So that might be one way to do it. I just wonder if selling tickets to fly into space is where this company really can make all its money, or if this is just the first stage of other plans they have. So maybe the next plan is to build a community on the moon or Mars, and you can go up there and you can buy a condo and spend some time on another planet for a while. Maybe that's the goal of all these companies, because just flying up and showing people on a ride for $200,000 is, I don't think that's where the big money is going to be. So we'll have to figure it all out, Jim. I don't have all the answers, but I guess you want to start somewhere. Start with the aerospace companies.
Mark, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRtrader.com. He was speaking to us from Arizona. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark and Mark Leibovit, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for our guests or the show, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Now stand by for a company showcase update from American Manganese President Larry Reaugh. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of How Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Thanks, Jim.
Larry, any big news releases this week?
Yeah, we had a very large news release, and it had a kind of a negative effect in the market thanks to the predators who sold about two-thirds of the stock yesterday. We traded about little over 15 million on the venture and over 4 million on the OTC. And it was a pretty hectic day, which resulted in a lot of phone calls and emails and concerned people. But the reality is that this is not anything new to the company. Every time we've announced a placement in the past, the predators come out and try to drive the price down below the offering, and because they want to kill the company. It's as simple as that. They want to kill it, and so they can pick up all the money that's to be made from where their short activities started. Now, I don't like trying to. It sounds like an easy out to blame the predators. But, when Anonymous is two-thirds of the volume yesterday and half the volume today, that's one of the houses they trade through, so I don't even count the other ones. But the fact of the matter is that, I don't have any shareholders that hold 15 million or even 10 million. I'm lucky to have a few that hold 5 million, and most of those are insiders. Or close to the company, and I can tell you they're not sellers. So it's not the company itself. I mean, here I am. I'm down, $1.5 million to $2 million. in my portfolio. I mean, it's not a nice place to be, but I'm very happy that we're doing this financing. It's not a surprise to see, the stock go down, dip because of a financing. But what this financing does for us, it gives us a clear path to actually commercialize our product, and which is the recycling side. Now, what does that mean? That means we're no longer at the mercy of the big companies that we've been doing work for free and turning around results that are stellar to them. When you go back and you look at it in hindsight, we have our Google statistics, and we see that at the top of the list is our financials. So there's a lot of people following the company and to see if they're going to be able to make the goals that they've set for themselves. And, we certainly have met the goal of getting the demonstration plant in progress. And now this is a clear path to, with this new financing, it's a clear path to commercialization, which puts us in a different position. Now we're in a position of strength, not a position of beggars, you might say, and not in a position where people, these larger companies, think we're going to cave in and they're going to pick up the pieces for nothing. That's not going to happen. And so that's a good part about a financing. And, even though shareholders get upset, the last one we did was at 20 cents, and that was almost a year ago. So, now we're doing one at $1, and which is a considerable premium on that. And it's not only being done; it's done by a U.S. agent that has brought in a whole whack of institutional buyers. We've had meetings with them all of last week and this week, and Zoom meetings. So I'm happy about the results. I'm happy that we'll be closing sometime next week. And what's that tell me about bringing institutional buyers in and a big exposure to the U.S. market? Well, you look at a good example is Li-Cycle, who did the SPAC, went down about 50%, and lingered down in that range, up and down, 50 cents or $1. And then recently they started to get analyst coverage, and the stock went back up as high as 14. And, so you need that analyst coverage in the U.S., and the only way you're going to get it is if you have big holders of shares. And so that's what we want to end up with, and we want some analyst coverage. I can't tell you when that would start, but I think once this is over and done, the stock will start to rally. And I had one shareholder write me, calling me a liar, and what he was basically saying was I said to buy the dips. So I went back and checked, and I did say buy the dips. I hadn't said it for a while, but I did say buy the dips back in last Friday, a week ago, and that was an up day, and then it was an up day for the next several days, and then the press release came out, and it certainly dipped. It went down from $1.22 to 91, 93 cents in that range, and so there's a dip. That's what I was talking about. It's a place to load up. It's not a place to panic and sell your stock. This is temporary. This is not going to be the norm. So I apologize to those people that were buying in the last few days, and I can't help that. We only knew about that they're ready to go here on Wednesday. So that's all. Thursday was it? Anyway, the stock took the dip, and naturally the predators were going to try to make it look like a shit deal. And, that's what they do. That's how they make their living, is taking the money out of your pocket and putting it into theirs. And with no ownership in the company and no risk, no nothing, as long as they can drum up the selling, they're in good shape. So we now have a clear path to commercialization. JV partners will begin to treat us with and see us meeting the goals. The guys that have been checking the financials regularly, and I have to say they got to be big, a lot of them, and of course the predators will be checking the financials too. But the fact of the matter is, everything is starting to look up for the company, and I see nothing but a great future. So, we had that, the announcements earlier that pushed the stock up. So, we're hoping that we're on a level playing field now with any potential joint venture companies or any potential licensing companies, and I can see nothing but good times ahead. So, but if you're in a weak position cash-wise, even though $5 million sounds like a lot of money, it's not when you're doing test work and R&D. And don't forget that we do the R&D for these big companies that we pay for. And that's a costly item, and we've been giving them stellar results, and, no reply about, going after our product, going after a licensing agreement, or going after a joint venture, because they all, because of the scuttlebutt out there with all the other companies that are in the business banging us, and the other, I know other groups that are doing it, even in labs in the world, because they don't have the solution. Chemetco does, and that's why we're with Chemetco. We've had nothing but great results, and the other good things about this is I've never had lost confidence in our process. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, but I don't sit there worrying about it. I always remember this. Worry, the only thing worry does for you is if you worry, it's debilitating. And, if you know what track you're on, which I've known now for 5 years, I never lose sleep over our process. It's solid, and I think we can continue to go on. All the good stuff that we've put out recently has only improved the whole picture. We can treat black mass as well as scraps, although we've got our eye on scraps because that's going to be a supply that's continuous. 10% of the production of batteries, and it depends who you're talking to, is going to be scraps. And that's a continuous supply, whereas batteries are being built the last 12, 15 years now, so that's further out on the scope. We've had a few million that have been built, and we'll be reaching the end of life, throughout that period. But the ones that are being built in the last year to till probably the next 10 years will have a long shelf life. And so, that's the reason why we looked at scrap in the very beginning. And now that we've got we should have some institutional ownership. That means that we should get some analyst reports. And, they won't be immediate, but they will be somewhere along the line. The analysts will start taking in-depth looks at us, if not just for the company, the agency that just did the work for us, but for the for other companies that are in the same position that are looking for a good product. And So we should get the write-ups that we need. I can't say that I'm happy with the market. I'm happy with the fact that we're meeting our goals. One of those is to get the money in. Everybody's been bashing me about the fact that I haven't had a JV partner yet. And some of these companies have done a lot of black mass joint ventures. And I shake my head and I wonder how they're going to treat that. And because I don't see it. And you gotta know what you're going to make at the end of the day. You got to optimize your profits. And that's exactly what we've done. We've optimized our situation where we can maximize the profits and reduce the costs. And this is significant to not just us. It's to the battery manufacturer, the OEMs, everybody else. We don't have to go through chemical treatments in China. We don't have to be shipping all over the world to get our product onto the market. And because we can do it one shot straight through. I talked about that last week, and bingo, there you got your product at the end of the day, and you can actually put it into a new battery at the same time. So I'm sorry that the stock has gone down, but this tide went down and it took down all the insiders as well as the as shareholders and their present value. But I always look at it this way: I'm not selling, so I'm not going to crystallize my losses because I know this is only temporary. And I'm sorry for those that feel that we pulled a fast one on them, but we announced the shelf prospectus some time ago, and the approval of that shelf prospectus, it was only a matter of time. We didn't know either when they would activate that process, and now it's been activated, and it's out there for everybody to see, and like I say, the shares should turn around by early next week, and I think that we are in a better position. And anybody that hadn't bought or was thinking about buying, I'd certainly take a look at the pricing today because we're close to the bottom of the dip, and it never hurts to buy the dips. Most of the time it doesn't. If it happens to be a total failure, don't buy the dips. I mean, Jesus, nobody would. But the fact of the matter is we have had no failures. We've progressed this project all the way through, and everybody's happy. Even Chemetco's happy because this happens to be one of their favorite. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, a lot of these ideas are Chemetco's, and but we recognize Chemetco's abilities, and we back them up with hard dollars to get it done. So I wish everybody a good weekend, and I won't apologize for another time for what happened in the shares, but usually on the financing. This is the first time we've stepped out of the private money area, and you're going to get a little bit of a bashing. So, but in the long term, and it's not that long, you will see that we've made the right moves.
Larry, for people new to American Manganese, what's the company all about?
American Manganese is a critical metals company that is basically involved in recycling and and reclaiming the low grades of manganese in the U.S. We have a contract with the DOD, and we turned that around, and now we're going to be applying for another contract with them, much larger, and so there's a good future on the manganese front, and we have got, just to update everybody, obviously we have not got our permits to drill up on the Rocher de Boule property. We haven't completed our negotiations with the native groups, and that's essential to get those permits. And we're moving ahead with the recycling. We've had lots of news on that, and we will continue to have lots of news on that. So you can find out anything you want. We're transparent, which always irks me that people will criticize me for what they deem to be that I'm not doing, when we're doing everything to keep the shareholders informed. And, they keep talking about timelines. Who in the hell can do a timeline in the COVID times? You don't know whether you're going to be shut down part of the operation tomorrow. You don't know if some other country has got some essential pieces for you is going to be able to ship them. So, there is a PowerPoint on the site that gives you a bit of a timeline, but I can tell you now that, I'm very comfortable once this financing is complete that we've got a clear path forward. Now you can find out all this on our website at AmericanManganeseInc.com, or you can phone me at 778-574-4444, or you can email me at LREAUGH@AMYMN.com. And the symbol for the shares in the Canadian market under the Toronto Stock Exchange, AMY. The symbol in the U.S. under the QB Exchange is AMYZF. And the symbol in Frankfurt's 2AM.
Larry, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on October 1st.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.